Well, good morning, everyone. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Keshava, and I have the pleasure of being a part of this community and being one of the ministers here, but also of being one of our core teachers at our Living Wisdom High School, which is a high school dedicated to teaching not only the core curriculum of the necessities of 21st century living, but also the essentials of eternal living, how to be happy, how to find soul victory, and how to be a true success. And I realized that I wanted to share a story from my experience in the high school, because so much of my life and vitality are directed therein that I figured I might be remiss not to share some of the inspiration and the stories and the grace that have come to me through that. So a couple of years ago, we had some new students join the school. They were young, freshmen, and as freshmen tend to be very small. And one of them, a young lady, was deathly afraid of flying objects. So much so that the mere sight of a frisbee, what to speak of if it was airborne, would nearly reduce her to quivering and shaking. And there were many times when trying to play games like basketball, I think basketball was the worst, or frisbee or other things, that we would have like full-on emotional meltdowns and need to exit the field and so on and so forth. And simultaneously, there was another young man who was quite small, very shy, so much so that when he would have to speak in front of a crowd, his knees would start knocking together, and he could barely get his mouth open to articulate himself. And as time began to pass, I realized that this young man had a passion for strength training. And I have a history of strength training and powerlifting myself, and so seeing that spark of interest in him, I tried to fan the flame. And after a year of fanning, suddenly that spark burst into life, into the enthusiastic flame of wanting to start a powerlifting team. And for those of you who don't know, powerlifting is a sport that you really don't need to care about. It's so small and so niche and so boring to everybody who's not really into it. I can summarize it in about the next 15 seconds. It's basically picking up heavy things and putting them down again. And the competition is how heavy of a thing can you pick up and put back down again without hurting yourself. And at any rate, all of a sudden this young man was kind of coming up, and I wanted to help support him, so I suggested, hey, we should start a powerlifting team. And I got together a group of the students, and I suggested that we do so. And I told them, this is going to be gut-bustingly hard. It's going to be the most intense thing you've ever done. It's going to be miserable. And somehow a number of them decided to sign up for it. And what was really sweet was, out of all of the athletes, we had the one young man who was quite gifted and who within the next year broke 4 state records, a number of which still stand. But then it was populated otherwise by a bunch of very small, very pretty, petite girls. And it was so charming to see the team's culture develop and grow, and the friendships begin to take hold. And at first, the team was, kind of this ragtag band of misfits. And then after some time, they started taking it more seriously, and they started really enjoying it, and they started discovering that there was more to it than just getting your high school PE credit. And then all of a sudden, we came to the end of last school year, and the summer months were looming in front of us. Normally the summer months are the times when high school students will, get barn fever and just run for the hills and forget everything that you taught them all year long, and all the discipline runs out, and so on. But they sat me down and said, Keshava, how are we going to continue the powerlifting team over the summer break? Because we need to keep training. And the young man who is the now sort of official team captain was a part of a medical intern program that was occupying his time from 8 a.m. until like 5 p.m. And so 5 high school students on their summer break elected that therefore the best way to train was to get up and get to the gym by 6:30 a.m. every morning during their summer break. And so we did. Yeah. I know, it's amazing. And so that meant, of course, that I was there every day with them. And we trained over the whole summer. And then last school year, the team began coming together. And all of a sudden, I started looking at some of the records and the necessities for competing at higher levels. And I realized our little ragtag team of athletes is starting to become pretty serious. And maybe we should start looking at like formal competition. And so we did. we went and we had our first team competition just back in February on Valentine's Day of all things. And out of every athlete in the team who competed, every single one of them qualified to compete at nationals. And for the record, that if you win first or second at nationals, you are invited to internationals. So it's definitely the funnel to some pretty high-level competitions for these young people. And so now, at any rate, I was very privileged to take this group of young athletes to high school powerlifting nationals in Texas just a few weeks ago. And we had 3 athletes compete. One wasn't able to because she was born 4 weeks too early. She was a little bit too old, so she was aged out of the competition. She would have won second if she had been able to compete, likely. But at any rate, the 3 of us were there, and we were competing. And of course, it was a marvelous experience for them. And one of the girls took 5th place, which was quite extraordinary. And then the young girl who used to be afraid of Frisbees is competing in a very competitive bracket with seniors, she herself being a junior. She managed to take 10th place overall. And the other young man who was also competing with older athletes took 14th in the most competitive division in the nation. And what's interesting is about powerlifting, you can kind of anticipate who's going to win. It's not really that great of a mystery. Unless people make mistakes, you can kind of see on paper who's the strongest athlete. And what's interesting also is if you have some experience in coaching, as I do, you can kind of anticipate, given a good year, how much progress should an athlete be able to make. And because I've coached these kids now for 2 years, and I kind of have a general ballpark of this, when I looked at these 2 athletes, the young woman who is afraid of flying objects and the young man, I looked and I suddenly realized, wait a minute, they were the youngest in their brackets. They took 10th and 14th. If they have a good year of training, they should have a very serious chance at winning next year, like probably top 3. Then, as it happens, I was in a school open house, and a prospective parent was talking to me about our athletic program. And they said, well, your school is so small. You have like 18 students, so you can't really do any team sports. So what does your athletic program look like? And I said, well, we have like a really competitive powerlifting team. And they said, what do you mean? How it really is really competitive? And I said, well, 2 of our athletes might win nationals next year out of 18 students. That's kind of outrageous numbers. And it's outrageous. And, just statistically, if you were to think about it, the fact that 4 athletes out of 18 in an entire school qualified to go to nationals. 1 placed, got a medal for 5th place. The other one was in top 10, the other close. Next year, they very well may win. And like I said, if they take 1st or 2nd, they'll be invited to compete internationally and represent the United States of America. Out of our tiny little school, 2 miles down this road from Cubberley Community Center. How does this happen? Now, the reason I bring this up is, of course, to get to share some of the joy that I get to participate in. But to get more to that, what was interesting is coming out of that competition, what touched me most deeply was not that they did so well, was not that we've broken records, was not that by, hopefully in 6 months from now I will report that we have 8 state records under our belt and maybe a national record if things go well by next year. But that's not actually what's important. And what's interesting is that's not even what's important to me. Or rather, it's not only that that's what's important to me, it's what is important to the students. The athletes who went and competed together, the ones who were most elated were the ones who didn't win. There's a beautiful picture of the team hoisting up the girl who won 5th place and a medal. They were more elated that she won than let down that they themselves did not place. And then when we got back, they began thinking about next year and but not just trying to win for themselves, but trying to inspire the rest of the school to join them in doing something great. And I was very touched by looking at them and looking at this experience because, in a sense, they were embodying some of the reading today, which is deeds versus intentions, or perhaps put another way, attitudes versus outcomes. What's really more important in our lives? Is it the things that we do? Is it the things that happen to us? Or is it who we become through those activities? Sister Gyanamata, Yogananda's foremost female disciple, said that what happens to us doesn't matter. but what we become through those things is what matters.